Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the first, and my official first episode of Introduction to Security, um, which is taught through Tufts University. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Ming Chow, Associate Teaching Professor at Tufts University. Uh, just almost had a network outage at my house moments ago, and I was like, "Oh God, Am I gonna make this on time?" And here we are, right on the dot. Thank you so much for joining me today. Um, just a little reminder: why am I doing this? Why am I streaming class on Thursdays on both Twitch and on both YouTube live as we speak? If you want the closed captioning, watch the YouTube. That's really one of the big reasons why. You know, because most of our classes are virtual this year, why not? Is why not take advantage of this platform and make education, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, more accessible. But not only students, but also for the general public. And as you know, there is a huge need and a huge desire for cybersecurity talent right now. And a lot of people have trouble or struggling to get the professional development that they need. So this is a great opportunity for me, take full advantage of the opportunity and the platform right now. And let's be honest here, especially for students right now, who wants to go to another Zoom session? You know, I mean, they're getting old. They're getting like really, really, overused, dull. So this is a way to change things up. So we're trying to solve a lot of problems here. Um, Before we begin with today's topic, um, at Tufts, this is my second official class. This is my second official class, and that means in any of my classes, it is customary to give a public service announcement. A very important public service announcement is we do not we do not tolerate harassment, any harassment at all, based on gender, orientation, or race. Um, is is an absolute no-no. And harassment is a serious problem, and not only cybersecurity but also in the tech field has given the field a huge black eye, and especially for those students. If you're not aware, this is a time to make them aware now, and also for the general public. This is just a huge problem. Just don't make the problem worse. Just don't do it. This is a public service announcement I give in all of my classes, the second class day. You can even go back to the archives on YouTube. Uh, I even give this PSA at DEF CON through the Packet Hacking Village. So, that today topic, we're going to talk about using Kali Linux on a virtual machine. Um, why? Is there a reason why to start with this topic? Well, a couple of reasons why. We're going to start with using Kali Linux and virtual machine. First of all, I did a survey among students, and and I asked students what are they comfortable using and doing, and skills like using virtual machines was down near the bottom. A lot of people were not very comfortable with using it. Actually, I've never even used virtual machines before. So that's number one. Number two, um, there's a lot of value, tremendous value in using virtual machines, and especially Kali Linux for people who are starting to learn cybersecurity. And number three, today's topic will actually is the foundation that will set the bar for next talks and next topics I will talk about within the next so many weeks. So classes, the topics I'm going to talk about here on YouTube and on Twitch, they're not one-offs. They're not one-offs at all. Everything has a reason, follow with each other. So let's start at at the top with the basics. What is a virtual machine? A virtual machine, in simple terms, is a file. It's a file that provides an emulation of a computer. Okay? It's an emulation. Think of it this way. Another more concrete way to think of it is a computer running on top of a computer. Okay? And so let's say you have Windows, you can run Linux or Mac OS on top of it. If you have Mac OS as your main system, you can run many different varieties of Windows, Linux, even Mac OS itself on top of Mac OS. So let's start. Let's do it. Let's have a deeper understanding of things tangibly now, hands-on. So I'm now going to switch to my desktop. Transition to my desktop. So I'm using a Mac. Okay. So here I am. I'm using a Mac, and basic terminology here. My main operating system. I'm using Mac for my everyday purposes. This is also known as the host. The host. Any virtual machines that I run on top of the host, in this case, my Mac OS, is called a guest. So soon I want to run a Linux distribution on top of my Mac. Okay, so my Mac OS is the host, and the Linux system, the emulation of Linux that's going to run on top of Mac OS is going to be known as a guest. Okay, so, okay, how do you create and run virtual machines on a Mac OS, on a host, in this case, my Mac OS? To create and run virtual machines, you will need a software called a hypervisor. A hypervisor allows you to create and run virtual machines. And many hypervisors out there. Many different types of hypervisors that you can use and download. One is called QEMU. It's open source, and it's also used for if you're an Android developer. QEMU is actually used for the Android emulator in Android Studio. Two really popular hypervisors that are available are one, VMware, and two, VirtualBox. VMware is actually is a commercial product, and it's not free. But for most institutions, if you are a student, you can get like a 1-year license for free, which is a really good deal. VirtualBox is free, and it's also open source. I know that when we do trainings at DEF CON, we use VirtualBox because it's free, it's open source. Anyone can go and download it. I use both. I use both VMware and I use both VirtualBox. They both have their pros and cons. Personally, I use VMware because I think that the performance is a lot better. I just feel that it's just the operation, the interface, much smoother, and the performance is a lot better. But you also can't go wrong with VirtualBox as well. So I am now going to open up, I'll actually open up both. VirtualBox. And here on VirtualBox, I can choose to import virtual machines, export virtual machines. I can add stuff. Okay. I'm going to quit out of here. So far, so good. Holding up. All right. So, all right. I'm going to open up VMware. On Mac OS, it's known as VMware Fusion. If you are on Windows or Linux, it's called VMware Workstation. There's also a product called VMware Player where you can only open and run VMs. it's not available for Mac OS. So VMware Player only allows you to run virtual machines, and it's only for Linux and Windows systems. Um, if you want to run and create virtual machines, you need a full workstation product. VMware Fusion for Mac allows you to open and create virtual machine. So I'm going to use that today. Okay, so I'm going to open VMware Fusion up. So here I am. You open up VMware Fusion on Mac OS. Um, Same idea with VMware Workstation on Linux and on Windows. You can install from disk and image. You can import existing virtual machines on Macs. You can even install. You can even use your boot camp partition as well. Okay, and you can create a custom virtual machine. We're not going to do that today. So what we're going to do next is, all right, so we got a hypervisor running. We need the file. We need a virtual machine file to open up. We need that next. So what I'm going to show next is let's go and download a virtual machine image file to use. And this is where I'm going to introduce you to Kali Linux. And I want to introduce you to Kali Linux. Go to kali.org using a web browser. And Kali Linux is a very popular distribution for cybersecurity, penetration testing, forensics, you name it. Want to thank the good folks at Kali and Offensive Security for not only such a great product, but also for their contributions, to the field as well too. So it's so popular. It's usually like the distribution that is recommended, especially for anyone that's working in security. And there's a lot of value to using a virtual machine like Kali, and I'll explain why in a bit. So there's a couple of ways that you can do. Go to downloads. Okay, go to downloads. Now, there's a couple of options. One, you can choose to download a Kali Linux image by way of a torrent, which is you're going to download an ISO, a DVD image, where then you can actually use that image and create like a bootable USB stick. You can create your own VM. You can create and install your own VM based on that ISO image. You can even use the ISO image, to install Kali Linux as your host system if you have a spare computer. Okay. I think a lot of you are actually wondering why. Okay, we're talking about virtual machines here, so what does that have to do with? Okay, what do we have to do? Well, here you scroll down a little bit. There are also VM images that you can download as well. There is a Kali Linux 64-bit VMware image. There's a 32-bit, still used, but not as common as a 64-bit image. Or you can even download the 64-bit image for VirtualBox. Pick your poison. Pick your option. Click on a link to download, to go to the page on Offensive Security to download the Kali Linux virtual images. So this is good, so you don't have to, what's the value of downloading a Kali Linux VMware VirtualBox images, so you don't have to go through the installation process, like everything's already installed for you, including the software, the tools where you can enable to drag and drop stuff from your host to your guest. And of course, I don't know if anyone noticed, that's the reason why I have a file on my desktop right now, to illustrate that once you actually download an image, if you download an image and you open it up in your hypervisor of your choice, then you can just drag and drop files from your desktop, from your host to the guest. Okay, so here are the two options that you can download. The two options that you can download are the Kali Linux VMware images. You choose either 64, or you can download the 64-bit image for VirtualBox as well too. Okay. So once you download it, so here's how the download actually works. If you choose the VirtualBox image, the file that you're gonna download is a .ova file. I repeat, when you choose to download the VirtualBox image, you're going to download a .ova file. If you download a VMware image, what you're going to download is actually a .7 zip file, .7z. It is a compressed file. So what you will need to do is, here it is. It is 2.2 gigabytes. It's a 2.2 gigabyte file. This is a very good reason why I bring this up, because there are a lot of pros and cons of using VM. We'll discuss those. 2.2 gigabytes you'll need at least, but you'll see that when you expand it, it's a lot greater than 2.2 gigs. So just download this. I'll click on it. All right. Save your file. I'm not going to download because I already have to save time. So you're going to download a 2.2 gigabyte .7z file. I don't need this anymore. Oh, important note. So these images have a default login / password of Kali/Kali. So the username is Kali. The password is Kali, all lowercase. That's an important note. So that's going to come in really, really handy. I'm going to close this out. I don't need the browser. Okay. So I'm going to open up my terminal. Say you downloaded the reason why I'm bringing up this terminal is what happens when you download the images. So I downloaded both. I downloaded both the VirtualBox image, .ova file, but I also downloaded the .7z, the 7-zip file for VMware. So you may be wondering, how in the world am I going to extract this thing this file? You need to extract it. You just can't use a .7z file as is. So what you will need to do is you will need to install, if you're on a Mac OS, you will need to install a software called P7-zip. P7-zip will allow you to extract a .7z file. I forgot what it is on Windows, but you will need to run 7z the extractor to extract everything out of the 7z file into what is a .vmware VM. I already did this, so I already extracted, decompressed the .7z file. So if I do an ls-lah, ls-lah is to show all the hidden files, but also the file sizes in human readable format. Okay. Now, just to let you know, so if I had to extract, I can show you loosely how you would, if you have P7-zip installed. So if you're using Homebrew on Mac OS, highly recommended. Brew install P7-zip. That will allow you to extract all the files off of a .7z file. It's going to say that I already have it installed. Come on. Come on. I already have it. So I already have it installed. Okay. I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to do ls-lah again. And one thing that I want to let you know is you can see the files, but this whole .vmware.vm thing that get extracted after the .7z, it's actually a folder. It's a directory. So to extract, I think you had to do, I'm gonna copy and paste, to extract the 7z file. Once you do 7z extract the .7zip file, the 7z file, the 7z file, the output will be a .vmware VM folder. Takes a few minutes to do. Okay, so I already done this to save time, but just to let you know, if you have already if you download the VMware image for Kali Linux, you need to extract it using 7-zip. Okay, and the output of that will be a .vmware VM folder. I don't even want to do this. I'm going to close out, quit. But what I do want to show you is how big the extracted file becomes. So the download, the compressed file is 2.2 or 2.3 gig, something like that. But once you extract the entire virtual machine file, the VMware, it's 9.35 gigabytes. That's the one, this is one of the file that you're going to use and open up and using VMware. It's a lot. So in terms of disk space, virtual machine can take quite a lot of disk space. Normally, like, it's pretty common to have a virtual machine file well over 8 gigs. I mean, back in the days when I was using this straight on a VM on my machine, I was using 10 to 30 gigabytes for a VM for a virtual machine file. It's a lot. So that's one of the caveats about using a virtual machine. That the file can grow pretty big. The file can go pretty big. So wait a minute now. Whoa. So you may be asking yourself, what's the point? Like, why do I want to use a VM? Why do I want to use a virtual machine to learn security? Like, what's the point? Here's why. And number one, the importance of virtual machine. There are a number of reasons, but 4 big ones are this. Number one, when you use a virtual machine, there is isolation. Generally speaking, there is isolation between the guest and the host. That means all the activities that you do in a guest will not affect your host. I'll give you a good example. When you're analyzing malware, you never want to use your host. Because if you analyze malware and something goes wrong and things spread, it's going to affect your entire machine. Enough said. Okay? You don't want to mess with your day-to-day host machine that you work with. Okay? When you analyze the malware, unless you do file sharing, that's a total different thing. If you analyze malware inside of a virtual machine, it doesn't escape. Generally speaking, highly unlikely. Okay, so number one, isolation. Number two, you can do snapshots and rollback. So you can take a snapshot of a virtual machine, and if things go horribly wrong, you can actually roll back. The other nice thing is, number three, virtual machine can always be deleted. If things go horribly wrong, you can even just delete, you can just trash an entire file, re-download a VM, and open it back up, clean slate. Okay, and number four, one thing I always like to say about virtual machine, it's great for learning purposes, great learning environment. So you can make all the mistakes in the world that you want inside of a virtual machine. You can make all the mistakes in the world in a virtual machine, and it doesn't affect your main machine. So here we are. Let's have some fun. Okay, now going back to VMware Fusion. Here's a hypervisor. Let's open up a virtual machine. So how you do that is you will go to File, Open, and you will open. Now notice you can't open up a .7z file. You can only open up the decompressed, extracted version of a 7z file, which will be the .vmware VM file. Hey, let's open that up. Oh, very important. Before we forget, very important to make sure that you have networking inside of the virtual machine, make sure that your network is on, that you have internet connectivity on your host. If you don't have internet connectivity on your host, you probably won't get internet connectivity inside of the VM. So make sure you have your internet on. Okay? So I'm going to turn this on now. The button. Uh-oh. Alright, this virtual machine, this happens all the time. This virtual machine may have been moved or copied. Yeah, what's the options? Don't be scared by this message. Just say I copied it. Why not? Here we are. Move on. Booting in 3 seconds. Here we are. May take a little bit longer because I have so much things running. For those of you, if you're curious, how am I actually streaming this telecast, how this broadcast out? Ooh, shiny. I'm using OBS, the Open Broadcaster software. Awesome stuff. And here we are. All right, looks good. So we got a login screen here. So now, as you can see, I'm running Kali Linux, a Linux distribution on top of my Mac OS. Kali, all lowercase. Log in. Come on. Okay. So while we're doing this, I hope you're thinking about some of the pros and cons of using a virtual machine. Using a virtual machine can take up a lot of disk space. As you can see, how much is it now? When it runs, it can actually get even bigger because of memory. Now it's still 9.36. Okay, here we are. We have Kali Linux running. One of the con about when you run a virtual machine, it is always slower. Generally speaking, it's always slower than the host because everything is all emulated. I mean, it's good enough. It's great enough in terms of performance, but it won't ever be as top-notch performance as the host because everything is all virtualized. So why is this important to bring up? So if you need absolute top performance hardware, especially when you do things like password cracking, you want to have direct access to the hardware. It's not the greatest idea to do password cracking inside of a virtual machine. You can, but if you need to run it all the time, you need direct access to like all the juice, all the hardware in the world, best to do it on native in the host. So some of the cons, performance, and also the file size. But there's a lot of benefit as well too, such as if you are on Kali Linux right now, you can go to the virtual machine and you can do snapshots. I can choose to take a snapshot if I want by using the camera. So this will take a picture, a blessed state of this machine, and it will take up more disk space at the cost of more disk space, probably 2 to 3 gigs. Or actually depending on how much RAM you have allotted to for this virtual machine. Okay, and if you want to revert back to your blessed state, last good state, let's say for example you made a whole configuration error or a mistake, you just go to virtual machine snapshot, restore snapshot. Here we are, here's Kali. So one of the nice things about downloading the official VMware image is the VMware tool is already installed with the virtual machine image. So what does that mean? You can expand the desktop. Now I got the full desktop now. You can expand the window size, and you can even, from the host to the guest, drag and drop files. I find dragging and dropping files much nicer on VMware. Always had so much difficulty in VirtualBox. Okay, so yeah, I can drag and drop files from host to guest. Can I do it from guest to host too? Yeah. No name, yeah, sure, I'll just replace it. Okay? But here's the one really nice thing about virtual machines, especially using a virtual machine like Kali Linux, is all the software that you need or may need is already installed for you. And when you download the Kali Linux virtual machine image, there's a lot of software that that is already on that's already installed. Upper right hand corner, the Kali logo. Click on it. Welcome to Kali. Lots and lots of security tools already built in for you. And this is especially nice, especially for like neat freaks like me, who I don't like to install software unless I use it all the time or something that I really trust. Like I don't want to make a mess of my system. Um, like I only have so much software, very few, as a matter of fact, software that I use on my Mac these days. And you know, when you install and uninstall software all the time, the uninstall process is usually not entirely clean. It's not entirely clean. Um, but virtual machine, who cares? Everything's inside of a virtual machine. So it's a really nice way. It's a really nice way to separate like software that you use. So if you want to just have security software, oh, here we are. We just use Kali. So I just want to have everything installed on here. Um, let's take a look at what's provided on Kali. Right click, up click on the logo. Kali Linux already have information gathering tools. DNS analysis, open source intelligence analysis, SMTP. Wow, no one chatting on the YouTube stream. Tools for vulnerability analysis. Fuzzing tools. NICTO. The network mapper. We're going to use that in 2 weeks. Web application analysis. Burp Suite. SQL map. WP scan. Zap. Already installed. SQL map. Password attacks. Password crackers. A lot of the good ones. Hashcat, John the Ripper. It's already installed. Wireless tools. Wireless security tools. Already built in. Reverse engineering tools. Exploitation tools. Metasploit. SQL map. Snipping and spoofing tool. Ooh, already installed. Post-exploitation, forensics tools, reporting, social engineering tool. Dave Kennedy's social engineering toolkit right here. You got your links, documentation, the exploit database. It's all here. Lots and lots of tools installed on Kali Linux. Already installed for you, so you don't have to, if you, especially for people who feel really uncomfortable, don't feel comfortable installing software, this is using like a pre-made virtual machine, like really nice. Okay, but one of the first things that you really should do, one of the very first things that you should do, not only if you fire up Kali Linux, but especially if you're learning security, like my students at Tufts are, is get familiar with the command line in the terminal. Get familiarized with yourself with the terminal, because one, a lot of security tools are based on a command line based. Two, command line tools, especially Linux, a lot of commands are chained off of other commands. So how you open up a terminal is on the upper left. Click on Terminal Emulator. Click on it. And here we are. Okay, remember how earlier I said, ooh, wait a minute. Before I type away, one of the biggest complaints I'm sure everyone's going to complain about is, can you make the font bigger? Now, I was struggling with this because Kali goes through an update like every so often. Kali goes through updates every so often. And for the life of me, I was not able to change the damn font in Kali, and I was wondering why. I mean, I know my way around computers. Go to File Preferences. I want to go from 10 point to maybe a lot something that is a lot bigger, like 16 or 18, so everyone can read, including myself. I'm gonna hit OK. Now I'm gonna hit apply. It's like, what? It's not working. So I had to look over this, and I want to thank the good folks at Reddit that helped me out with that. I was like, what's going on? And I'd like to look it up, and he said, yeah, to increase the font in Terminal and Kali, and the latest version of Kali, you have to do Control, Shift, and then the plus key. There you go. Yeah, Control, Shift, and Plus. That's how you would actually increase the font size of the terminal. I was like, okay, I'll share that. Thanks for telling me. Here we are. I hope that's big enough. I'll go a little bit bigger. So one of the first things, I remember I said earlier that, you want to make sure that you have internet access before turning on a VM. Make sure you have internet access enabled. One of the first things that you really should do, especially if this is your first time, if this is your first time opening up the virtual machine, or you install the virtual machine, you want to install all the updates. So how you do that is sudo. Sudo is a command that gives you temporary root privileges. Now, which is really cool is in the past, old version of Kali Linux, you didn't need sudo. Like the default user was root. Like you logged in as root for years. But as of I think it was last year, it was very recent that the folks at Kali decided we're going to remove we're going to change the way that people that you logged in, and it's now Kali, which is a non-root user. It makes sense, and of course for safety purposes, because if you're a root user, you got the keys to the kingdom. I mean, you're a super user, God mode. Sudo apt, which is the package manager. For Kali. Now, also, if you're familiar with Ubuntu Linux or Debian Linux, apt is also used for package management. In fact, apt is the default for Debian. Yes, Kali Linux is built off of Debian. Built off of Debian. Apt update. Give me an update of all the software packages. Uh-oh. Don't be scared by this, okay? You're the local system administrator. Enter your password for Kali. And what I will do, I was just gonna download. Okay, give me a list of all the most updated software. Give me the database of all the most updated software. Okay. 524 packages can be upgraded. Run apt list to see them. So apt list minus upgrade. So quite a lot of software that needs to be updated. If you want to go ahead and update all the software on your Kali Linux, sudo apt, you can do sudo apt upgrade. See what happens. Sudo apt upgrade. Boom. 506 upgrades, 36 new installs. Some things are not going to upgrade. You're going to need at least a gig, get a gig of upgrade. Additional 173 megabytes of disk space will be used. You want to continue? We're not going to continue. But this is just to make sure. Well, two things. So one, I'm going to say no because I don't want to take the time to update. I'll let you do that. but it shows two things. Number one, when you run sudo apt update, and it can download all the latest list of software updates. It shows that, well, you got internet working, or you got your network is working inside of the VM. If you don't, if actually you see errors and stuff, that means something is wrong. Before you install any software on, before you update any software or install any software on the VM, run sudo apt update first. And recently, I had a recent incident, an issue with this. One student asked, traceroute. The hell? Traceroute is not installed on Kali Linux? No, it is not. You have to install Traceroute on your own. Why is that? Why is Traceroute no longer installed on Kali? I forget why. But if you want to install a tool like Traceroute, install. It is assuming that you do sudo apt update first. I believe it's NetTools Traceroute. I think it's maybe it's NetTool Traceroute. What was it? I think it may have been iNetTools. No, I forgot what it was. Let me just forget what it was. Alright, so to install a software tool that you need is sudo apt install, the name of the software package. I think my brain can be messed up sometimes using a Mac, but that's okay. And of course, goes and download and install Traceroute. You may be wondering, what in the world is this Traceroute tool? Like, what is it for? Well, maybe this is a good time to show you that let's use this time, the next few minutes, to navigate our way through the command line. So if you want to learn more about a command or a tool, use the man command. Man is for manual. So let's say man. An interface to the system reference manuals. Clear the screen. Is there one for clear? Man clear. Yep, clear the terminal screen. Man traceroute, which we just downloaded. What is traceroute for? Print the route packet trace to the network host. Ooh, interesting. So you may actually notice a keyword here, packets. That's going to be a topic of the next week's conversation. One of my all-time favorite topics to talk about. Okay? Quit. Man ping. What is ping? Man ping. Ping sends an ICMP echo request to network host. Ping actually just checks if a remote computer or network remote computer is up and running or not, and that's it. It's a ping google.com. There we go. Yep, they're on. So if you actually can run ping, usually it's a very good sign. It's a good sign. It's a great sign to say, oh, you got networking. You got networking on the VM. Okay. If I do ping, and I have a home server here, 192.168.1. I think the number like 128 is not used. I think. Uh-oh. Destination unreachable. Good. I shouldn't have anything that is with the IP address on my local network at home, on my home lab at 192.168.1.128. It's good. What if I do ping? Oh, I just noticed my head is in the way of the thing, but I think it is good. But wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Let's move this a little bit. If I do one ping 192.168.1.20, I run a pi hole at my house, and this should return something. If, hopefully this returns something, because if not, then all is not well at home. Yeah, of course it works. Of course. Okay, you get a response. Think of it as Pong. You get a running stream of numbers. Okay, nice. No packet loss. I'm gonna clear the screen. Remember, I'm still on my VM. I'm gonna do an LS. I got all this file list. What's LS? Man, LS list of directory content. I can also do ls-l to do a order, so I can see file permissions as well too. So let's take a look at all the way on the left. So let's read is drwx r-x and r-x again. So the D stands for directory. Think of it as a folder. The first three tuples, rwx, the R stands for read, the W stands for write, the X stands for executable. A folder needs to be executable so you can actually open it. So, but those first three tuples, the RWX, is the permissions that the owner of the file have access to. Hopefully the owner in this case is Callie, which is also denoted by the left column, by this column here. This column says the first Callie is the owner of the file. This following column, the second Callie, this is what they call the group. You can belong to different groups. So for example, student group, faculty group. Faculty group can actually take a look at grades. Student group can't look at grades. That's a real world example to illustrate the importance of using groups. This tuple here, R-X, is the permissions that the group has access to. Read and execute. And the final tuple, R-X, is the permission that others, the world, have access to. Read X, read and executable. I don't like any of these folders on here, so can I just do RM documents? Oh, what? RM documents. I can't remove a document. It's a folder. Oh, well, let's take a look at man RM. Let's see what's going on. RM remove files or directories. Okay. RM to remove each specific file. By default, it does not remove directories. So this is also this is a little exercise to illustrate the importance of reading the fine manual. I repeat, this is a good exercise to read the fine manual. Okay, there is also a command called rmdir. Hey, so you can do rmdir. No, removing these folders aren't going to mess up your system. In fact, they will certainly help you. Let's do ls-la, lh again. Of course, you can see. There's another way to remove a folder. This is a little more deadly. This is rm-rf. That means recursively and force delete everything, including everything underneath that file. Then I'm going to do rm-rf pictures, rm-rf public, rm-rf templates, rm-rf videos. If you do rm-rf at the root folder, don't do this. CDs, the Did I do this correctly? I always forget it's with the backslash or forward slash. This is the root folder. You don't want to run sudo rm-rf in this folder because you kill your entire system. Don't do it. Have I actually screwed up a system before using rm-rf? You better believe it. More often than you think. Okay. CD tilde means go back to your home folder. What in the world does CD means? Change directory is CD. That's weird. ls minus la. ls minus la will list all the ls minus l just list all the files. ls minus la, however, will not only list the file, but also include, like, you will also see hidden files as well too. As you see, there's a huge difference. Let me do that again. ls minus l will just list all the file in your current working directory. ls minus la, the output's a little different. Not only will you see desktop, but you will also see all the configuration files that are in my home directory as well too. And there's a common pattern when you actually take a look at the output of ls minus la. Hidden files begin with a dot. Files, folders, hidden files or folders all begin with a dot. Okay? Can you actually modify setting file? Absolutely. So I'm gonna do, by the way, I can do more. What is this bash history file? More bash history. No, there's nothing there. More dot profile. Profile executed by the command interpreter for login shells. So if I want to put like command shortcuts and all that, I can put it here. One of the places I can put it is a dot profile. Okay, I'm gonna hit quit. Can I download a file or something here? Let me do an ls again. Yeah, sure. You can use curl. So I'm going to download a, let me just open a folder. Nothing here. You can even have a graphical view of your folder if you want. /com/116, I think it's set1.pcap. Oh. Use the output to tell curl to output at a terminal anyway. Oh. Requires a commander. This is new. Oh. So I'm downloading a file called set1.pcap onto my local machine. Like 30 something megabytes if I'm not mistaken. This is for next week's lab. Good Lord, this could take a long time. Yeah. You can actually quit. Yeah, if you actually get impatient, you can hit Control-C, quit out of it. Do an ls now. Oh, I got part of set1.pcap file. Okay. You can also use wget to download a file as well. I think this is a smaller one. wget. There you go. This is a much smaller file. Set3.pcap is a much smaller file. So you can use curl or wget. So it also shows you have your network access. You may be wondering, so if I look at the screen again, what are PCAP files? Well, to have an understanding of what a file is, you can use the file command. This will tell you what kind of a file it really is. Set3.pcap is a PCAP capture file. Microseconds, yeah, microsecond TS, okay? So file command can actually tell you what kind of file it is. So I'm gonna do, I like Vim, test.txt. Open up the Vim text editor. Hello all you happy people. Right, and quit this. Create a text file. If I do file, text.txt, ASCII text. Okay. One of my favorite commands to use on the command line is string. What is string? Eh? Wow. Well, string, if you do a string on a file, like set3.pcap, it would just give you all the human readable strings in that file. Ah, you're kidding. Oh, this is my stupidity. It's actually not string, it's strings. Man, strings. Print sequence of printable characters and files. Reason why I actually did this exercise is to make sure that precision matters and spelling matters. The little things matter. Strings set3.pcap. Ooh, interesting. Got some human readable stuff here. Strings set1.pcap, the halfway downloaded file that we have. There we go, we got a whole stream of funny stuff. Strings, you can even do a wildcard.txt. Hello all you happy people. Okay. If you want, let me just take a look. I'll just do one more quick one. rm test.txt. Remove is rm is for remove. But just a little warning that if you just do straight rm, it doesn't really remove a file. It only removes what is called a pointer to that file. If you take a look, the test.txt file is quote unquote gone now. Can I Grim Reaper it eventually? Yeah, I can. You can resurrect a file, because when you remove a file using rm, it doesn't delete the file completely from the system. Only what is called the pointer or reference to the file. In other words, yes, you can, with forensic software, you can just bring back test.txt in some way. If you want to securely remove a file, you can use a command like shred. Overwrite a file, this is content, and optionally delete it. Much is sometimes it's called secure delete, secure erase, hit quit. So which leads up to, which leads up to, I'm going to quit out of the terminal now. But remember the file that we dragged and dropped? So you may be wondering, why did I drag and drop a file called sample.pcap into this thing? Why did I do that? And the reason is, this is actually a good transition into the next time, the next class, is Kali Linux is, it gives you quite a lot. There's a lot of tools, lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff to look at, but it can get really overwhelming especially for any person learning security. There's a lot of stuff on here, lots of great tools, and including tools that you can even install on your own. Where do you begin? Well, we began today with not only virtual machines, but we also began with Kali. We also did Kali. We did the terminal. So where do we go from here? And the next time, what we're going to do is we're going to work on arguably one of the most important tools, especially for network security. I think it's sectools.org listed Wireshark as #1. It hasn't been updated for a long time. I'm going to use Wireshark next week. Next week, oh, next week we're going to use Wireshark, the network analyzer. We're going to look and analyze network traffic next time. So if I can do a file open, I can go to my home directory. Oh, I have to go to home, Kali, my desktop. A lot of clicking. There we go. That file that I dragged and dropped. So what does this mean? What does this file? Tune in next week. Tune in next week. I got 15 minutes now, so that's all I have for today in terms of Kali Linux. I can shut this thing down now. To log out. Beep. Shut down. When you shut down a virtual machine, whatever you do, like the files that we download, stays persistent. So if I turn this on again, if I go through this again, you should still see all the files that, we work with on the VM. It's not like a live VM or using a live ISO where things are stored in RAM. Like when you work on a file and you delete it, it's gone. Like, no. So while this is loading up, yeah, I'm looking at the chat log right now on Twitch. Wow, there's nothing on YouTube's. Still, there's nothing on the YouTube's. Yeah, when you want to, again, tools like RM-RF, you want to play around with that stuff, do it in a VM, not on your host. You can learn by making mistakes. Hello. Here we go. Back again, and sample.pcap is there. Okay, so I can just quit out. And I shut this down again. YouTube stream didn't work. Really? You're kidding. Hold on. I find that surprising. Well, it's definitely being recorded on the YouTube. Well, one of the nice things about YouTube is that it does give the closed caption, but at a cost that people may or may not be anonymous. But I'll post up the YouTube stream. When I post up the YouTube stream, it's going to be good. It's going to be nice because we'll have all the closed captioning, which becomes really important for accessibility purposes. Can the host machine access the file stored inside the VM? The answer is there are ways to do that. Yes, the host can access files stored in the VM. For example, there's a couple of ways I can think of it. One, if you do file sharing between the VM and when you do file sharing between the VM and the host, that's one way. But the way that comes to mind immediately, which I do occasionally, is set up an SSH server on the virtual machine. And then on your host machine, you can just SSH into the VM and then you get to see everything. Okay. So, that's why no one is there, but okay. Nice thing about Twitch is most people, for most people, I can't figure out people's names. I know maybe one or two. Are these lectures available on Twitch once you're done doing? Absolutely, they are. Not only available here on Twitch, but also on YouTube. And I will also upload them to Canvas as well. I can quit this out. What else? Hello? Wow, there's a lot of conversations here. This is really my first official time actually using, um, really doing a stream. But there are Linux commands that seemingly don't work. Yeah, there are some commands that just seemingly don't work. Um, I know one of them. I think, if I'm not mistaken now, Kali defaults to IP and not ifconfig. Okay. My ping. What's that? All right. So what is it? What is the error message? Implementation of UP. Oh God. Yeah, one of the things that about the USB 2.0 controller on VirtualBox, if I'm not mistaken, that I had to turn all that off. I turn all that. I mean, I have to go into the settings of the VM and just turn that off. Like no USB. It's really weird. Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Oh, I love you, the Oracle VMware extension pack. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's for certainly for VirtualBox you would need to download. Weird. Okay. Let's see any other big questions. One thing is, this is good, and I'm just reading at the very top of the messages about the networking options in in VMware. I'm going to go to my virtual machine library under Windows. What I use. This is important to mention. This is important to mention is about networking. If I go and click on the virtual machine and I go to my settings of the virtual machine, you can configure the settings of the virtual machine. You can allot as much memory as you want. So right now it's 2 gigs of RAM for the VM, which is good, which is pretty standard. I know that Kali won't work if you go under 1024 megabytes, which is 1 gig. If you go try to set up under 1 gig of RAM for the VM, not going to work. But what I do want to mention is a networking tab. If you go to network options, there are a couple of options here. One is called internet sharing, or better known as network address translation, and the other one is called bridged. So, what's the difference between bridged and network address translation? The skinny version is network address translation will piggyback off of the network that you're using on your host. So if you use network address translation, which is by default, it's going to piggyback and use the network that is on uh, that is going to be running on your host. But if you want your virtual machine to act like a separate computer on your network, so it has its own IP address on your network, you want to be using bridged. So for example, if you actually want your VM to be, let's say, like a web server, which anyone on your network, say a home network with n number of computers, to use and to access, you better use bridged. Okay? Network address translation only available to your computer, piggybacks to your computer on whatever network that you're on your host. Okay, there's some value of using both, But if you want to open up a virtual machine, let's say, for example, the Tufts network, that gets really tricky for a couple of reasons. If you want the if you want a virtual machine to be on the Tufts network, like the entire Tufts network, to be like a separate computer on the Tufts network, you use bridged, but then you also have to register it with TTS. So you can see the difference. When you use network address translation, you don't have to register the virtual machine with TTS. Only if you want your virtual machine to act as a separate computer. Okay, so there was a few questions I see. How much space do we need? One for Kali Linux on VMware and two the host for the Mac. I mean, right now, let's see how much the virtual machine has ballooned to. This is one of the things is a virtual machine gives you like Kali gives you all the tools that you need and then some at the cost of disk space. So right now I'm 9.5 gigs. Does a bridge network adapter just send all the traffic to the VM and the VM will ignore the messages? I believe that if you send all the network traffic to the VM, bridged, and the VM will just ignore the message. Essentially give you the VM access to a network adapter. Yeah. But is it still running on the host hardware? It isn't. No, it's not going to use. One of the things I know about if you're using any sort of networking on a VM, if you're using VM networking, it has its own network stack. So it's called like virtual network adapters, as far as I know. Okay. Anything else? Try. Should we allow all system permissions when we download? The answer is one of the things. Oh yes. One of the issues about downloading. This is good. That's a good question that was brought up on the Twitch. Installing VMware Fusion system security. Yeah. Yep. And so if you're downloading either VMware Fusion or, oh, I love you, Mac, sometimes. Yeah, you may get a warning. I had this problem. When you install either VMware Fusion or VirtualBox, you will get a security problem called System Extension Block Notification. Yeah, you will need to enable it on, I've got to go to my system, preferences, under security and privacy, under general, there's going to be a note here that said, hey, we blocked VMware or we blocked VirtualBox extension. I'm trying to find a good picture of that on the web.